Well, hello and welcome to the Push to Be More podcast with me, your host, Matt Edmondson. We're going to do it. We're going to dive into another deep exploration of what fuels this journey called life. Oh, yes, we are. And joining me today, I've got an exciting guest, Benjie Craig from Benjie, all the way over in sunny California. Now, we're going to be diving into his unique life experiences, the hurdles he has had to push through, the way he recharges his spirit, and what steps he's taken to be more. Yes, now don't forget you can find the detailed show notes and a complete transcript of our conversation over on the website at pushtobemore.com. And hey, whilst you're there, why not sign up for our newsletter? And each week we will zip all of the show's insights, links, and goodies directly to your inbox, absolutely for free. So how cool is that, right? Just sign up, it's easy as, and it all comes straight to your inbox. Now, this episode is proudly powered by the incredible Podjunction, the company that helps you build your business with podcasting. It's the magic behind the scenes that lets entrepreneurs and business leaders like you and me amplify our voices by hosting our own podcast. But you might be thinking, why on earth would I want to do that? Why would I want to start a podcast? Well, let me tell you, my own podcast journey has been nothing short of transformational. It's not just about marketing, although that is a pretty big deal. It's about the community, it's about the connection. It's given me a platform to champion my customers, my team, my suppliers, and it's created a ripple of impact far beyond what I could have imagined. But I get it, the technical stuff can feel daunting. Setup, distribution, getting the tech right, understanding the strategy. Seems like there's a whole lot going on. And honestly, who wants to get tangled up in production? Because let me tell you, I don't. Done that, been there, never doing it again. That's where Podjunction step in. They are the backstage crew that make sure your show goes on flawlessly. You get to do what you love, which is engaging with incredible people, and Podjunction takes care of everything else. So if you're wondering whether perhaps podcasting is a missing piece to your marketing strategy, it's time to have a chat with Podjunction. You can check them out, find out more information at podjunction.com. Now, that's the show sponsor, Podjunction, podjunction.com. But let's talk about Benjie Craig. He loves helping people discover their purpose in life, whether at work or in the local neighborhood. Running his own contracting business, he is the go-to guy when it comes to electrical needs. Oh yes, at home, he is a dedicated husband and the proud dad of 2 adventurous boys, which sounds very ominous, doesn't it? Benjie, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you on. How are you doing?
Doing so good. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. 2 adventurous boys?
Yeah, 2 adventurous boys. We actually just took them to Thailand and Singapore last month, and we got to explore there a little bit. And they also love to adventure on Minecraft and Roblox and other games online as well.
So they're like the real world and the virtual world, right?
Yes, they do.
Excellent. How old are your kids?
I've got a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old, 2 boys.
Oh, good ages, man. Yeah, really good
Yeah.
ages. Yeah, love that. My boys are a little bit older. My eldest is 22. My youngest boy, who's my middle child, is 20. So just a few years further on.
Yeah.
But, yeah, good ages. They sort of transition from just being kids to being sort of people you just love to hang around with mates, you know, that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. Do you have like shared interest in sports, or are you like you like cricket and they like I don't know, American football?
I love most sports. I do love cricket. And we can watch it online here, so it's good, but usually really not good times of the day to watch it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I actually went to a rugby game last weekend. Some friends of mine, their son was playing in a game, so it was a lot of fun. But my boys really aren't that into sports. So
Right.
we went to watch a soccer game or football game last weekend. They enjoyed it, but they weren't like crazy about it. They'd rather be home doing other things.
Okay.
So yeah, sports isn't the common thing, but I think traveling is a big common thing for us. And yeah.
So have you always been a traveling guy?
Well, so I grew up. I was born in Switzerland, and I grew up in Pakistan. My parents worked with a relief and development organization over there. Then when I graduated high school, I moved here to the States. And one of my goals was, before I had kids, was just to leave the US once a year and just
Hmm.
get out and reset, refocus, make sure my priorities are in the right places. And now that my boys are growing up, uh, we're not living overseas. We're living here. We're living in a very diverse place, which is amazing. But I also want them to see different parts of the world as they're growing up, just to have a little bit of a different
Yeah.
perspective.
No, that's great, man. What was it like growing up in Pakistan?
Well, for me, it was normal. I didn't know anything else
Yeah, yeah, I
because I
suppose,
only
yeah.
grew up in Pakistan. So, but it was really good. People very hospitable there, and I think what it did was give me, they call it third culture kids. So you're not in your home culture,
Hmm.
and you're not part of their culture. You're in this like third culture
Right.
thing, and so I think it helped me just understand different perspectives and things, and especially being here in the Bay Area, it's a very diverse area. um, as I'm interacting and working with people, I can kind of put myself in their shoes in a lot of ways and
Hmm.
see things from a different point of view, which I think has really helped me in my business. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm just kind of curious. So you grew up in Pakistan, so third culture kid, and you were there your whole life until you were sort of graduated high school, which is what,
18.
18.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that do you go back to Pakistan, or have you sort of they're all sort of fond memories?
The last time I was back was 2003, so it was a while ago. I've been to India and Afghanistan more recently.
Mm,
We were actually planning to go, we were thinking about going to Pakistan this year, but plans changed and we ended up going to Thailand and Singapore instead. So I do want to go back. I really want to show my boys Pakistan. It's just finding the right time to do it.
yeah, it's interesting because I spent when I finished college here in the UK, when I was 18. So sixth form, as we like to call it, because we like to have
Yeah.
different names for things, don't we? So when I
Hmm.
finished sixth form, I actually went and lived in North Carolina. So I went to
Mm.
your country,
Yeah.
and one of the great things in life for me was in 2018. So Josh, my eldest, would have been 17 at that point, and Zach was 15. I got to take them to North Carolina, and I got them to, they finally got over there. They got to see all these places that Dad talked about. They finally got to meet most of the people that Dad talked about, the ones who hadn't passed away. And then a few years later, so was it 2 years ago now? I took my daughter over to North Carolina as well. So she got the same tour,
Mm.
the same. This is
Yeah.
I did some voluntary work in a children's home out there for a year, and
Hmm.
took them around the children's home and all that sort of stuff. But I think it was really. I mean, obviously, I love going back because lots of memories and stuff and connections there. But I think it was just really good for the kids to see all these sort of magical places or all these places that Dad talks about maybe in a magical way, because I lived there in a time when everything was magical, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, that makes sense. I think traveling and seeing places just put so much more together.
Mm,
Like um, I've taken my kids to Turkey and to, like, we went to Boston. My sister lived in Maine, and just seeing some of the historical sites and different places. And then, when you read about it, you now have a picture in your mind, like, oh, I know what it looks like. And
mm,
so, like, hearing stories, I've told my kids stories about growing up in Pakistan. And so they have pictures in their minds, but it's not the real picture.
yeah,
And then once you really see it, I think that just adds so much more to it.
yeah, that's awesome. I think my kids would say that it was great. I don't think it's a place they would have chosen to go on holiday, if that makes sense. And North Carolina
Good
is lovely.
barbecue, probably though.
Yeah, very good barbecue. Absolutely very good barbecue. And there's a drink you can get in North Carolina, and you can only get in North Carolina, called cheer wine. It's like it tastes a bit like Dr. Pepper. It's a soft drink,
Hmm.
and it's made in Salisbury, North Carolina, and so every now and again we would get it back at home. People would ship it over to me from the States. And so when I took them around the cheer wine factory and all these kind of things that they finally got to see and put places, do you know what I mean, to all the stories that, because, you know, if you're like me, Benji, you like to tell the story, probably the same story 4 or 5 times, and the kids did, Dad, I've heard this before. But then when they see it, it's a different thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely
So,
is.
so the travel thing, where if one of the things that intrigued me, right, about when I lived in the States, North Carolina, was obviously growing up in Europe is a very different experience in many ways because Europe, even more so now, Europe is on your doorstep. You know, I would
Mm-hmm.
regularly fly over to France, or we would go to Spain, or, you know, so on and so forth. We went to the States a few times when I was growing up. One of the things that intrigued me about North Carolina was actually the amount of people at the time. Now, bearing in mind, this is in the early 90s. We're going back a few years.
Right.
One of the things that intrigued me was how many people who hadn't traveled outside of the continental United States. In fact, how many people actually hadn't traveled out of their own state was quite significant. I think that's obviously changed a lot with the world. But if anyone's listening to this and they're listening to you talk about travel and growing up in different cultures, where is the one place on earth everybody should go and visit, do you think, that they should make it a point to travel to?
Boy, that is really tough. Um, I mean, I really like the San Francisco Bay Area. Come check it out. It's
Hmm.
diverse, all kinds of foods. I mean, it's really good. Um, I think of the places I've been, I really enjoyed Turkey.
Hmm.
I think great food, great culture. Went to Antalya. My parents lived there for a little bit, and Istanbul was pretty cool. Then I think Thailand is a really good place too. I really enjoyed
Mm.
Thailand. Again, great people, great food.
Hmm.
I mean, I think you can say that about most places, but so far for my family, Thailand and Turkey have been the top 2 places that we've really enjoyed going.
Very good. Both beginning with T.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, I've been to San Francisco a few times. In fact, on the trip with my daughter, we went to San Francisco. We flew into LA, hung out with some friends in LA for a few days, got over the old jet lag, rented a car, and drove from LA up to San Francisco up the Pacific Coast Highway. It took us a week to do. And we had the
Yeah.
best time. It was such a memorable time. And this was a sort of dad-daughter trip. It was just me and my daughter. My wife, my boys, they were at home. It was just great time, just one-on-one time. And when we got to San Francisco, right, Benjamin, bearing in mind I'd been there before, there is a place that I never knew existed, and we stumbled across it somewhere on one of the piers. You know, so you got all the different piers, haven't you, down in San Francisco?
Hmm.
And there is this retro arcade place, right, where they've got all arcade games and pinball games and stuff like that. And I saw it and I said, so we have got to go in there. Maybe they have got some of the games when I was a kid, you know, none of this sort of newfangled stuff that I can't play, like FIFA and
Right.
all that. So I just can't do it. Um, and so I said, let's go have a look inside. And they had old like pinball machines from the 40s and the 50s. And I heard the Star Wars theme playing, right? And I was like, this is magical. And I said, please tell me they've got that game. Oh. And I got so excited and I went round the corner and the thing that was playing the Star Wars theme was not the game I had in my mind. It was like a Star Wars pinball machine. And I was like, oh, I was a little bit disappointed, I'm not going to lie. We carried on walking around, and then I turned around the corner, but there it was, the machine that I had in my head in the first place. It's the old Star Wars Atari game. It's like a vector graphics game where you get to sort of fly around the Death Star and try and blow it up. Anybody who grew up in the 80s will know what I mean. I spent
Right.
many an hour down at the local arcade playing this game. And let me tell you, muscle memory is a real thing. I played that game and smashed it first going, and I was loving it. So I said to my daughter, here's some cash. We're here for the next few hours. I'm playing on this game. And she's got some video of me getting very excited playing this game. And it's the only video game that I've actually beat my daughter at.
Wow. That's
So you should go
incredible.
check that out. I think it was Pier 49. I can't remember. But if I ever go back to San Francisco, I am going there again. In fact,
There
it
you
got
go.
so serious, Benji, that I went online to see if I could buy that game, that machine, and have it installed
Mm.
at our warehouse. But I've yet to find one. So if anybody out there knows of the old original sort of Star Wars Atari game that's for sale, or even a sort of a mock-up of it, you know, a sort of a fake one, I'm interested. Reach out and let me know. So how did you end up back in San Francisco from Pakistan? Is that where your parents originally were from, or is it just happenstance that you were there?
So we live in a town called Fremont, California. It's like the fourth largest city in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're actually the largest, or we've got the largest, most manufacturing jobs in the state of California. So the only reason why we're really not on the map is because we don't have a sports team or an airport. So
Start a cricket
if we
team.
had one of those, our claim to fame is Tesla's headquarters is here. Well, not
Okay.
headquarters, but their main factory. So,
Yeah.
um, but my dad grew up in the Bay Area, and so when we came back from Pakistan, we moved to this area, uh, and just kind of reconnected into life here. And I worked as an apprentice electrician and went to college and university after that while I was working as well, and kind of just jumped in. So
Mm.
I think there were a couple different things, including a faith community here that we joined that we wanted to be a part of.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So the family's settled there now. So let me ask you a question. I mean, we call the show Push to Be More, and obviously one of the questions that we like to ask people is, in terms of areas that you have had to push through, what is maybe one or two of the biggest challenges that you've sort of faced in life? I mean, it sounds like you've got lots of opportunity for challenges with all the, living in different nations, but maybe I'm being presumptuous.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things just starting your own business is just the stress that comes with how much or how little work you have.
Hmm.
When I started the business, there was I could see it on a weekly cycle. One week I'm stressing out about I don't have enough work for the guys, and then the next week I was stressing about I've got too much. How am I going to get everything done? And
Yeah.
there's just this constant battle. And then there's this point that I just realized, you know what? I am going to have to let that go because otherwise, it's not going to be good for my health or the people around me because I'm just,
Yeah.
pushing it on everybody else. And it's amazing how work comes in. I mean, there's construction, they call it feast or famine, right? You either have too much or
Yeah.
not enough, and it's learning how to balance that and manage through the company. But just watching how you do the pieces that you can do, and you can't really do more, um and then as you go forward and you've built relationships, watching the work come in and fill the schedule, sometimes just at the last minute of the day
Yeah.
you find work for the next day, things like that. um Not kind of holding that too tight. Like I was just reading a quote the other day that said, when you worry, you're actually worshiping the problem.
Oh,
Um,
I like that. I do like that. When you worry, you're going to worship the problem. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
oh no, you're good. So it's and at Gemby, we say we're a learning company. So everybody who's coming in, we're learning and growing together, teaching each other. And right now in this season, I've got a really amazing team who's picking up, and um, you know, uh, I'm just yeah, all of everybody who's here, we've kind of trained from the beginning. So my estimators started out as apprentices, and
Hmm.
they've worked their way up, and then now they're designing things and estimating and looking for new customers and things like that. And so, like right now in this season, I am, I'm slowly stepping back and letting them take the lead roles to build everything because, I just think it's so important to, as people are growing, to give them the runway to move forward, right? And
Yeah.
not be the bottleneck. But sorry, not be the bottleneck.
The model neck. Even, don't be either. That would be a good thing.
Exactly. There you go.
It's interesting you talk about. There's a lot of stuff there, Benji. I'm kind of curious in the sense that you worry is worshipping the problem. It's a great quote. Is worry something that you've had to deal with, and is it something you still have to deal with? Is it because you come across people with different anxiety levels. I think, especially when running your
Mhm.
own business, there is that natural anxiety of how, where's the money going to come from and all that sort of stuff, which you do get occasionally. But I think entrepreneurs are a breed of people that can either just sort of ignore that or just pretend it doesn't exist, which is probably not that healthy in a lot of ways. But then you get the other type. Something I'm noticing more and more, especially in the modern age, is actually anxiety is quite crippling for a lot of people. And I'm curious as to where you are on that scale.
Yeah, so I think it's important to know how to like kind of work through your anxiety
Mm,
and process those things, right? Um like a lot of the fear is not going to go away. It's how are you going to work through or push through that fear,
mm,
right? And how can you have peace going through these hard times and being nervous about things? We had a job a couple years ago that um, was really complex, and we had this massive shutdown that had to happen in like 36 hours. We were basically taking the main switch gear of an electrical of this building out and replacing it, and it basically like everything had to go right for it to happen in that
mm.
time. And I think um like there was a lot of nights leading up to that just waking up worrying and just going like, do we have everything right and things like that. But it made me have to work through like, okay, how do I keep myself calm? How do I be a peaceful presence? Because the strongest heartbeat kind of sets the pace in the room, right? And so what I've seen with my guys is when things aren't really going well on a job and they're like, hey, we need you to come help, can you please help? Like I'll come to the job site and I won't jump into the hardest, most difficult thing. The first thing I do, first check in on all the guys, say hi,
Mm.
and then I'll start cleaning the job site. And if they need me to go get parts, I'll go get parts, all of that stuff. But then by making the job site clean and organizing all of the parts, all of a sudden the anxiety level of the space starts coming down
Yeah,
because things are organized, it's safer. And then the guys are doing most of the work themselves and they get it done. Now I'll jump in wherever I need to, but I'm going to take the lowest task and just clean the space and create the environment where we can bring the anxiety level down and move forward, right? And that brings a calming presence to everybody.
that's really powerful too. Because what I love about this story, Benji, is actually you're the CEO, and quite often out of hubris, sometimes just out of happenstance, just without thinking about it, quite often as the CEO, we don't come in and do the lowest task. If that task needs doing, we usually question why it's not been done, if that makes sense, especially if we've got people working for us. Like, why is your desk a mess? Why is this a mess? Why is that not sorted out? And it's interesting in the times of stress, what you're just by coming in and cleaning up the site, I can see how that would reduce anxiety, and I can see the benefits of it. But what intrigues me is the fact that actually you're willing to do that. That you're willing to just, no, I'm just going to go clean. I know I'm the owner, and I know a whole bunch of reasons why I shouldn't have to do this, I suppose, but this is what I'm going to do. Is that something that is intentional in you? Was that something that you sort of set aside to, or is that just happened to be the way it was one day?
Uh, no, it's intentional. I want the guys to see that I'm not above anything in the company. Because if I'm going to ask somebody to do something, it's something that I'm willing to do myself.
Mm.
And it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Yeah.
So, if I remember one of my guys tells this story, I came on the job site and it was like a second day working for us. I came on the job site, started talking to the guys. I hadn't met him yet. And so he's just like, hey, can you jump in and help me do this? So we worked together. I did a couple things and then I moved on to something else. And then somebody else came up to him and was like, hey, that was the owner, right? And so he tells that story a lot of like that made a big impression on him
Yeah.
where I was willing to just jump in and help where asked instead of, going, oh no, here, let me get somebody else to do that for you or something.
Yeah.
Um, So, but I think it's so important to model it, and because then you're creating that culture of, nobody's above any task, right? Because if
Mm.
we're all on it, if we're all a team together, we're all willing to, you know, uh, pull our own weight, like just help to get things done.
Yeah.
And it's not a silo or a hierarchy or anything like that. Because,
Mm.
typically in the trades, you've got the journeyman who, they'll do all of the fun stuff, and then the apprentices end up sweeping up and stuff like that. But really not a big fan of that hierarchy model. Like
Mm.
I want it to be a little bit more flatter, where we're all willing to learn from each other and work together and help each other move forward and grow.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And like you say, I imagine that tells a story a lot to your guys that work with you. Um, and it's something that I'm conscious of myself. Like we at one of the warehouses we have, the warehouse that we have here in Liverpool, we just had some racking installed, and so I said to my wife it was getting done on last Friday, and I said to my wife, I said, "Oh, I'm just going to go to the warehouse, just make sure everyone's okay." Ordinarily, I wouldn't be in on a Friday, but I'm just going to go make sure everyone's okay, and I'm just going to sit quietly in the corner, and it'll all be quiet, and it'll all be fine. And I'll just get some. I'm going to get all this done. And I reeled off a list of things, my little to-do list, to my beautiful wife. Came back, my wife said to me, "How did you get on?" I said, "Well, I didn't get any my to-do list done." And she's like, "Why not?" I said, "Because I picked up a brush and I was picking up boxes and I was moving stuff around with the guys in the warehouse." Because like you, I just think you can't be above these things, right? When it's crazy like that, you've just got to get in. You've got to muck in and go, "Come on, let's do this." And sometimes you have to lead by example, don't you? And it seems to work out better when you do.
Yeah, and I think part of it, my dad says I do umbwa, which is managing by walking around. And so when
I like
one
that.
of the things I love doing is, just going up to people's desks, or out in the field, like, what are you working on and how can I help? Right?
Mm,
Like, what are the roadblocks that you need help with to keep moving on your stuff?
mm,
So I my my number one customer is my employees,
mm,
right? They're the ones serving the customers, but I'm the one serving them. So how do I help them get roadblocks out of their ways
mm,
so they can continue moving forward? Um, because if I create a company that everything has to go through me, or I'm the bottleneck, as I said before, then it's going to break at some point,
yeah.
right? Because but if I can be the one supporting them and empowering them and helping them move things forward, then it's scalable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Love that. And it's so true, actually. And do you find then by doing that, Benji, that you end up working later because all the stuff that you maybe should have been doing when you're helping out the guys doesn't get done? And so do you find you work more on longer hours to try and get all of that sort of stuff done?
Uh, I don't see that. I see. I mean, for what I see, what's on my plate, like, what I need to be doing is supporting them. So,
Mm,
like, if there's things that are on my plate, maybe they need to be on somebody else's plate,
mm,
right? Like, what's on my plate, and what are the things that only I can do, right? As the owner coming around and empowering the people, that's the only thing that the owner can do, right?
mm,
Um, Whereas, you know, doing paperwork or different things like that, a lot of that can be done by a lot of people. Now, there's
mm,
there's certain things that only I can do, so let me prioritize um, those things. That there's a um, kind of a um, well, I've got a notepad here that I use, and it's basically got four quadrants on it, right? And it's
yeah.
got important, not important; urgent, not urgent, right? And one
Yeah.
of the quadrants is, if it's not urgent and not important, I wrote, like, the thing on my notepad says empower others.
Mm,
So that means, let me train somebody else to do it,
yeah.
so that I'm not doing it. So there's a whole bunch of things or sorry, they're urgent but not important. So like they
Yeah.
need to get done, but they don't need to get done by me. And
Hmm.
so how do I continually not put things on my plate that maybe they're easy for me or I want to do, but they take my time, but it isn't the best use of my time.
Yeah. Yeah. That takes a lot of discipline, though, right? The old, I think they call it the Eisenhower matrix, don't they? The one that you're talking to.
Yep, that is
And
what it is.
yeah, yeah. And so it's that takes a lot of discipline because sometimes I find, I don't know if you're like me at all, Benji. Sometimes I just kind of think to myself, it's probably just easier if I just do it. But then looking back, you kind of go, well, you said the same thing over the last 3 years. You've said the same thing 30 times. You know, you should have, if you going back, if you'd have trained someone right at the start, you'd have been a lot better off these days. But I can find myself in a situation where I'm just like, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, I mean that's the easiest thing, and sometimes they're tasks you really enjoy doing, but if you start looking at your ROI on your time, then the amount of time to develop somebody now and the amount of time that they can do it, um, things just go really well. I mean, for the last few weeks, I've actually been doing a remodel on my house, and there's a couple pieces that I've been working on. And so I actually have not been in the office much the last few weeks. And so I'm letting the whole team run with everything. And I'm
Mm,
able to focus on getting my house where I want it to be because the company's able to run by itself. But that's intentionally taking those things and
yeah,
developing them into the people around them versus me holding them.
yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I there are times when I go away, and actually quite often these days now, which I think is a beautiful thing. I can go away and the company, when I come back, is in a better place than when I left. And you kind of go, that's really interesting. That's very helpful. Thank you for that, guys. But Michelle, who runs our operations, and also to some extent Sadaf as well, who is a mutual friend of ours, will say to me, "Listen, I know on your notepad you've got 40,000 good ideas that you thought about when you were away." Because when I get space, I can get very creative in my thinking. I'm like, right, well, we could do this or we could do that, and if we change this to this, it's going to work so much better. They're like, can you please just for the next 2 weeks, don't tell us anything. Let's just carry on. And if it's still there in 2 weeks, let's have a conversation about it. Because I found that, or they found actually, when I came back from these sort of times away, that I would just bombard them with so much. It was very hard to keep up with it and to sort of take it all on the chin. I don't know if you suffer from that same thing, but that's one of the big things I now have to watch out for. Having a company that I can step away from is that when I come back, I don't get too excited.
Yeah, so coming up with new ideas is always fun. And and then there's the my wife went to a conference where they talked about the wow and the how, right? Like she's a big how person and I'm a big wow person, right?
Hmm.
And so the wow is kind of like imagine if we did this, and then the next question is how. And I think there's times to go like, okay, this is a wow meeting, we're not implementing it,
Mm.
let's just what if, and finding places to have that, and then kind of keeping them there and letting people know like, okay, this isn't happening, this is just a time to talk about ideas. And I think over time, as a company develops, it's fun when the wow ideas start coming from the staff,
Mm.
right? And they're the ones going, "Hey, what if?" Right?
Yeah.
Like I've got a lady in my office, and she messaged me uh, at the beginning of last week, and she said, "Hey, um, can I do something for all the moms who work here, and I do a little Mother's Day thing. Yesterday was Mother's Day here in the States."
Mm.
And I'm like, yeah, go for it. And so then she messaged back going, well, what's my budget? And so I responded back, well, what do you think your budget should be? And then she gave me a number. I said, okay, go for it. And then, um, and then she went and did it, took care of it, had like everybody in the company sign the card, and had a little gift basket or something for him, and did it all. And that was so beautiful, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
how do we let them do it all, right? Like
yeah.
we don't always have to have the best ideas.
Mm.
And because when they start coming up with ideas, then then you really know people are bought into it and they're owning it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm loving this. It reminded me of something we did years ago called smocks. This was something we did in our one of our warehouses. There was a lady that worked for me at the time called Nicola, who affectionately as a family we call Lala because our kids when they were younger couldn't say Nicola, so they just called her Lala.
Mm.
So the name stuck as it would. And beautiful lady, we're still very good friends to this day. But when she was working with me, she would just have idea after idea after idea about how to make their experience for the customers better. And we were shipping out hundreds of boxes every week. And so we came up between us with this idea of SMOCs, which was an acronym for Sexy Moments of Customer Service. And
Mm.
we basically said to Nicola, listen, this is your budget. I can't remember what it was, but this is your budget. It was a nominal budget. And during the month, you can spend that budget however you want to spend that to create a SMOC, right? You do what you want to do. Here's your budget. You know the company, you know the values. You don't need to clear everything through me because we understood her heart. We knew the kind of stuff she'd come up with before was great. And so that's what she did. She just would go out and spend money every month and buy things to put in these boxes that she was just sending out from the warehouse, doing the picking and packing. And it transformed what would be quite a mundane job into something quite extraordinary because she started to get to recognize customer names. And she would put in the boxes handwritten notes, put in gifts, put in Starbucks gift cards. I mean, all kinds of stuff that she thought had tried over the years. And I loved it because I never knew what she was up to from one day to the next, but I could tell you the reviews on the website. They certainly told you. Although one time, I never forget it, we got an email from somebody saying, I opened up my box, and we were selling beauty products at the time. She was like, I opened up my box and I found, I think I found part of somebody's lunch here because Nicola had put chocolate in the box and not really explain why the chocolate was in the box, which I thought was hysterical. But yeah, I love that when it comes from the staff. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So what does more look like for you? Where's the business going over the next few years?
Well, that's a good question. So I'm continuing to build and develop the staff, and really they're doing a lot of it themselves. They're coaching and developing each other. I
Mhm.
love building ecosystems, right? And so, um, like one of my guys on Saturday, took his journeyman test and passed, and so that was really exciting because one of my other guys was the one coaching and mentoring him.
Right.
I wasn't doing it. It was somebody else, right? And so, um, now we've got levels of people coaching and developing other people versus me coaching and developing
Yeah,
everyone,
yeah.
right? Like
That
like
sounds
it,
awesome.
it
Yeah.
it's building a system. So, um, I think, are we going to be at 50 people, or are we going to hit some revenue number or something like that? I think we have to see how the economy goes, but like I can continue building my ecosystem whatever size it is.
Mm.
And I'm not trying to create a massive company that's going to take over the world, but I'm trying to create a company that um, builds and empowers my people, right?
Hmm.
Our vision is cities and people are empowered. And then our mission is we build lasting relationships. So, lasting relationships with our customers, lasting relationships with our employees,
Yeah.
um, and with our vendors, right? And so, like right now, things are really slow in construction in the Bay Area, and we've got about half the guys in the field as we normally do. So we're kind of in a smaller spot.
Hmm.
But what we're focusing on right now is how do we develop and build our team so that when the next wave comes, we're ready for it and we can scale and take that
Yeah.
work. Now that said, I am a builder, not a maintainer. So I'm also working on another product, which is it's a it's so that's where my new ideas go into a
Hmm.
new product where once I've got a team fully built there, and I'm developing a piece of software to help contracting businesses run their business. So if you think of the economy, most people in America work for a small business,
Hmm.
500 or smaller.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, if you
yeah.
look at the news, it seems like everybody works for, some massive company, but that's not true.
Hmm.
And so how do we help the small businesses thrive? How do we help small contractors thrive? And I think through a set of tools that we're building that helps you run your business, I think we can help small contracting businesses be a lot more healthy. And then alongside that, I want to kind of working on doing some coaching and developing as well. So kind of bringing those pieces of, um, helping people find their purpose and help them really thrive.
That
So
sounds awesome.
that's
That sounds
that's
really
a
cool.
picture forward.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you're getting into software development, and so that's a whole different world of pain right there, right? Uh, but fun.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm realizing is that there's so much that I don't know,
Hmm.
right? I'm like, I started one business. How hard is it going to be to start another one? And so, I'm finding all kinds of new things, and I find like, okay, I am strong here and here. I'm not strong here, here, and here. I need to bring other people in, and so
Hmm.
we've been developing the software for about 6 years now, and we've got a couple customers, and over the next couple of years, it's now to take it from the idea of something that our company fully runs on, and then
Hmm.
help other companies be able to use it and implement it as well.
It's interesting how that works. I mean, at Podjunction, we developed some software for the podcast that we run, and it was all in house really. And we've, I mean, I'm a big fan of podcasting, as everyone knows, but I do like 5 or 6 different podcasts, and and there were common things that we thought, well, if we could just have a piece of software that did this, it would be really helpful. And so we had it developed. And so it's interesting, isn't it, when you develop something out of your own needs, and now we just need to make it, I think, function and look better. Because for us, I was never really that bothered about what it looked like. It was more the function side of it. But now we're kind of like, well, do we take this to market because it's quite interesting what we've done? So Benji, we'll just have to trade notes on taking
Yep.
software to market and figure that out. What do you do, curious Benji, to sort of fill your tank? How do you recharge your batteries? Because you've got 2 companies, 2 adventurous boys. You do a fair bit of traveling. Obviously married there in the Bay community. You got the ups and downs of the construction industry. So how do you stay sharp? How do you stay on top of your game?
Well, I love to start my day out with a walk. I do about a half-hour walk every morning.
Okay.
It's like 1.5 miles. Just walking around the neighborhood, seeing what's going on, seeing some of the neighbors, things like that. And that kind of starts my day.
Hmm.
So I start with kind of like I've walked a little bit, I've moved around and got some fresh air, and kind of been able to meditate on a few things, and process through what's on my mind, and then step into things. Um, like I said, I love traveling. That's one way I love filling my tank. But then actually working on the house is something I love doing.
Mm.
I mentioned, I'm in the middle of a remodel. The I think I've got a little ADD, little dyslexia,
Hmm.
just enough for the to have it, and I find when I'm doing things with my hands, it helps me think and process things.
Yeah.
And so as I'm working on something, I'm able to focus. I love the idea of being able to sit down with a notepad and do some serious thinking and stuff like that, but that doesn't work for me. I just sit there and go like, I'm wasting my time. But if I'm building something with my hands, it doesn't take a lot of mental energy, but I'm doing something physical. And then I'm really able to focus and process and think through things. So sometimes, if I've had a frustrating day at the office, I'll just go clean the warehouse, and I'll be able to kind of process through what I need to think, because I'm doing something physical, and that actually distracts my brain enough to be able to focus. So those are some of the ways that I just kind of engage the process through things I need to, or if things are really tough, just take a breather, go on a walk.
Hmm.
You had a hard meeting or something, just go take a walk. For a couple of my people, when it's the first time that they've been involved in letting somebody go, I say, hey, all right, just go take a half hour, get a breather,
Yeah.
and then let's come back to it. Because like, let's get back to a good healthy space, and then be able to move on. Because when you've got tense moments, you need to be able to recharge. And I think um we're all going to get hit, we're all going to go down, right? But it's how fast can we come back up, right? Like, when
Hmm.
something hard happens, is it going to take you 3 days to bounce back, or is it going to take you you know a couple hours or something like that? And how can you find the right ways to recharge, to
Yeah.
be the best for your team? Because if you're mad, that's coming out at somebody, right? And that's not helpful for the team. So how can you get to a space where you can process what's going through, and then be able to move on with what's going on?
Yeah. Very good. Very good. I like that. One of the good things that came out of COVID, wasn't it? I don't know for you, but for me was just because you were cooped up so much more that actually going for the walk was a really good idea, and it was a habit that we all got into. And just literally like sort of 3 or 4 minute walk from my house is quite a nice park. That's got a sort of I guess it's about a 1K track, so just short of a mile, all around when you walk around the park, which is not bad for inner city Liverpool, I suppose. But the quite often during COVID, you would see people walking around the park doing all the Zoom calls, walking around with their iPhones in front of them or whatever, just doing the calls. And I used to be one of them. And the other thing that I did was I have an app on my phone called Day One, which is like a journaling app. And you can do the thing now, can't you, with the iPhone where there's that little microphone on the keyboard, and you push it and you dictate in effect, and it transcribes as you're going along. And I would just open up Day One and I would just start talking, and the iPhone would transcribe whatever I was saying straight into my journaling app. And I found for me it was a brilliant way to journal, trotting around the park, talking into my phone. No one cares because they just thought I was on a Zoom call, got headphones in. So no one really thought any different of it. It's all accepted behavior that you're going to talk to yourself if you've got headphones in now. One of the things I have noticed though is, and it's not just the people that I see, it's me included, there are less and less people in the park doing less and less walks. It's like that behavior, that habit has slowly sort of started to disappear again, a few years after COVID. And I said it to my wife the other day, I keep thinking to myself, I must start doing that thing again where I walk around the park, I do calls walking around the park. I don't need to be in front of a computer all the time. Zoom records every call now. So, you can just have the whole thing transcribed. I don't need to take notes and so on and so forth. And so I like the fact that you're doing that. You still got that habit. Was that something you discovered in COVID, or is that something you've always done?
I started a little bit before that, but COVID was a real help. And I took a lot more calls walking during
Mm.
COVID because I was bored of being in my house. Um, and my front porch actually ended up being my office, because with two kids on online school, and my wife working as well, our house filled up pretty fast.
Yeah.
Um, but I think um, you know creating rhythms is really important, I think. And for me, waking up, I read a little bit, meditate, and then walk, right? And just spend some time just resetting. And so there's days that I don't do it, but I miss it those days, right?
Mm.
And I want to, I get back to it. And it's um you know time, we can't get more time, and so we end up our time gets sucked up in all kinds of things. And so how are
Mm.
we going to use our time intentionally, and you know create some space for us to recharge, and then we actually have something to give others, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we start at zero, then we may not be best for the people around us.
Yeah, it's that whole sharpening the saw thing, isn't it? And I totally agree with you. And it's what I've noticed for me, those habits are easy to sort of let go of when life gets busy. And actually, probably when life gets busy, they're some of the key habits I should keep doing. And it's easier to sit here and say that, and it's another thing to do something about it, I suppose, isn't it? Listen, Benjie, I'm aware of time, man, and I feel like we're just getting started in many ways. But if people wanted to reach out to you, if they want to connect with you, maybe they're in the Bay Area, maybe they just need some electrical work doing and they're in the Bay Area. But whatever it is, what's the best way to do that?
So, I mean, I'm on all those socials. Benjie Craig, Benjie, Craig, Craig. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, any of those places. Just message me and we can chat.
Fantastic. We will, of course, link to Benjie with an IE in the show notes, which you can, you'll get on the podcast app, whatever you're listening to, they'll be in there as well. Just follow the links. Go connect with Benjie and say, how's it? Benjie, listen, man, it's been an absolute joy to connect with you and chat with you. Loved hearing your thoughts. Loved to hear what's going on with the company as well. One day maybe we'll get to connect in person. Sadaf thinks you're a really cool person, by the way. Sadaf's the producer of this show. If you're listening to again, who's Sadaf? She produces this show, as you'll hear me say in the end credits. But she's like, oh yeah, Benjie's coming on. He's a really cool guy. So she's a big fan.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
No, it's been fantastic. Brilliant. Wow, thank you again, Benjie, for coming on. That wraps up another invigorating conversation. A massive round of applause. Oh, I can do this. Hang on. Let me do this. Yes, there we go. I see nothing. No. Big, massive round of applause for Benjie for joining us and shedding light on his inspiring journey. It's been great. Huge thanks also to today's champion sponsor, PodJunction, for all you changemakers out there contemplating podcasting as your new vehicle of expression and connection. Do check with them. Do seriously check with them, podjunction.com. And check out, actually, Sadaf has just started her own little podcast called PodJunction, which is brilliant, actually. Do check that out. Now, remember, keep pushing to be more. Don't forget to follow this show wherever you get your podcast from, because we've got some more great conversations coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of them. And in case no one has told you yet today, let me be the first. You are awesome. Yes, you are. Created awesome. It's just a burden you have got to bear. Benjie's got to bear it. I've got to bear it. You've got to bear it as well. Now, Push to Be More is brought to you, like I say, by PodJunction. For transcripts and show notes, swing on by our website, pushtobemore.com. And a big kudos to the team that makes this show possible, which is the legendary Sadaf Bainon, who we were talking about, and also Tanya Hutzlek, and also shout out to Josh Edmondson for the fantastic theme music. So from Benjie and from me, thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.